On this episode of Horror Face Off, it's all about the ladies who looked fear in the eyes and won. They both defeated the killers in their respective franchises, earning them icon status and even coining the phrase, Final Girl. Laurie Strode of the Halloween franchise, played by Jamie Lee Curtis, versus Nancy Thompson of the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, played by Heather Langenkamp. They were able to beat Michael Myers and Freddy Krueger, but now they endure their toughest battle yet, each other, on a Final Girl episode of Horror Face Off. On this episode, we have from Kings of Horror, Patrick, content creator, Deandra, actress and author, Lilith. They join the Horror Face-Off slasher, Leighanne, and me, your host, Jason.
Hey everybody, welcome to Horror Face-Off. I'm your host, Jason, and on today's episode, we have a special Final Girl episode. It is Laurie versus Nancy, Halloween versus Nightmare on Elm Street, probably two of the most beloved, iconic final girls in horror. So why not make them face off? And to break it down, we have an outstanding panel. We have some newbies on the show today, which is awesome. And let's just explain a little bit of the show.
We take two horror films and match them up against each other. Using specific categories, the show's fearless panelists dissect every bone-chilling detail. In the end, the film that has the most category points wins Horror Face-Off. But the panel needs to think fast, for they only have a limited time to make their case. If they take too long, they will be killed.
And for the first time ever, it's Final Girl. So this should be really, really fun, really, really cool. I'm looking forward to it. And as usual, I am joined by my final girl, Leighanne. How you doing, Leighanne?
Ready to kill.
All right. Awesome. Okay, so she's ready to go, and so am I. So we're going to start with story. I was going to say plot. I'm used to starting with plot. We're going to start with story, and for this, we're going to start with Patrick. We're going to let the new blood of the show wait and bated breath. So, Patrick, you're up for story.
I got to go with Nancy for the story for the fact that you literally have three different storylines for Nancy. For Laurie. And, Nancy has one singular storyline, and it's more of a complete story, and that's why I'm going with Nancy versus Laurie.
All right, awesome. Okay, so Lilith, you got the hang of it? You ready to go?
Mm-hmm. Okay, when it comes to both of them, I think that Nancy is the strongest as far as story goes, because she is fighting a being that transcends time and space, that she's sleep deprived and still able to kick ass. She's able to coordinate a bunch of other people together to help them be able to understand the rules and the way that it works. She pulls him out of another dimension into her own to fight him. And even when she is playing herself as the actress Heather Langenkamp, she still kicks his ass. So she cannot escape.
All right, so you've been killed.
Fresh blood.
You've been killed, but your point was well made. And Leighanne, you're getting your kills in early. This is great. All right, Deandra, you're up.
All right, I'm going to go with surprise Nancy, because Nancy has a very strong beginning. You see her arc going from kind of normal girl into somebody who's extremely strong on her own, has to face this demon, then dedicates her life to helping kids who went through something similar as her. And even though she passes on in the comics, which are canon, she is the good to Freddy's evil, and she protects the Dreamers and continues to fight him, as well as save people like Alice and others. So Nancy truly, through life and death, is committed to fighting and defeating Freddy.
Kill.
Oh, we got you. We killed you. All right, that's one category in the books, and now we move on to appearance. For this one, we will start off with Lilith.
Oh, well, yeah, gonna go with Nancy. Just, I like how she looks better. I think she's pretty, but she's also down to earth, and she looks like she can actually beat someone up.
Wow. All right. Mic drop. Okay. So, Patrick, you're up.
Yeah, I was debating back and forth on this, and I mean, Laurie gives us multiple hairstyles throughout her appearances, but Nancy has the white streak in her hair, and that's, you know, super relevant to the story, and I think that's more of a good sign, a good mark of a good appearance. So I'm going to go with Nancy for appearance, and Laurie, not so much with her hairstyles. So Nancy for that one.
All right. Deandra.
All right. Of course, I'm going to go with Nancy again. I think when you recognize both girls, if you see somebody cosplaying them at a convention, you'll recognize who they are. But I love the symbolism on Nancy's pajamas with her flowers, which tie back into the rose trellis that is outside her window, and that you have the softness of the flower, but the thorns, which represent both sides of Nancy, tough but also soft.
All right. Very succinct. Okay. So we're moving on now. Everybody's got their feet wet. We all know what we're doing. So we move on to the next category, which is acting. And for this one, we'll start off with Patrick.
Acting, I have to give it to Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie. She is, you know, a very well seasoned veteran actress in Hollywood. Done A-list features, done indie, has done horror, and every time she brings her A game, even if you don't like David Gordon Green's new trilogy, she still does a good job with the acting, revisiting a role she reprised 40 years ago and brings new life to it. So I got to go with Laurie, aka Jamie Lee.
Kill.
Happy endings. All right. Deandra's killing herself. It's speaking of which, Deandra,
She's so excited.
Isn't it awesome?
Actually, you know, I do have to give it to Jamie Lee Curtis on this. She is very much a seasoned actress. In the very beginning, it was kind of even, but Jamie has a lot of training, and there is a reason why she went so far. So I'm definitely going to have to give that one to Jamie. Sorry, Heather, please.
All right, Lilith.
I'm going to go with Jamie Lee Curtis because she has a level of realism to her acting. It seems like she is actually in danger. She's actually scared. It's more believable. Although I love Nancy, it's a little bit over the top.
All right. Wow. So Jamie Lee Curtis making a little bit. Laurie is making a little bit of a comeback here. I'm gonna give some love to Heather for this, because I think that I honestly think they're both very underwhelming in the first films, and they both had a lot to learn. But and I really feel the same way actually for Heather in Dream Warriors as well. As much as I love the movie and her being in it, but she got so much better as so if you've ever watched Just the 10 of Us and her portrayal of Marie in that show, she was insanely awesome in that show. Like, she was so good. And I think that and then by Wes Craven's New Nightmare, I thought, like, you know, she had really, like, so it's funny because they're so young in those first films, so like you kind of But so I just wanted to give her a little bit of love. I have gone on record to say that her performance in the first one wasn't the greatest, but after that, hey, growth. All right. Speaking of going on a little bit too long, Leighanne, you probably could have killed me there.
I definitely could have. I should have.
All right. So now we move on to, and I know you probably wanted to. I know you really wanted to, especially before the show. We had a little bit of our first little tiff. All right, so we're gonna go on to mental acumen, and you can go about this however you want. And for this, we will start off with Lilith. You're up.
I would go with Nancy because she jumped right into everything. She didn't have several movies before she finally learned how to fight back. She went right into it with creating traps, with realizing that she could get him into the world, and just later on that day being like, okay, I think I'm going to yank him in, set all these traps, and then kill him. So she planned everything, just spur of the moment. And then, she decided that she was going to go onward and even make it her career.
All right. Let's throw to my old partner in crime, Deandra.
Well, I think a lot of the great points have been said about Nancy. She definitely was into survival, and she went and found an old military handbook and threw together some booby traps, which is just so cool. Like, not many people do that. And then, of course, going on to take the professional route, and then just learning absolutely everything she can about Freddie to defeat him on an ongoing basis as best she can. So, Nancy. I really don't want to die again.
Yeah, I noticed that. I'm like, if anybody's gonna go on about someone, I won't say who, in this show, it's gonna be her. She's gonna die in every category. You've died once, and all right, we'll get you. You remember how happy it makes Leighanne, right?
You don't want to
right.
die?
There's a soundbite for you, Patrick. You don't want to die. All right, Patrick, you're up.
I'm going to be the oddball out and say Laurie. If you take the Ichiro timeline, she took that tragic event that happened all those years ago and became dean. Was it dean of the college? And then if you take David Gordon Green's trilogy, she became a survivalist from one incident that happened one night 40 years ago, not related to, a brother. And she even neglected her own child to survive and make survival her number one, item. So yeah, I think Laurie has the mental stem.
The only show where neglecting your child gets you points. All right, so we move on to initiative, and for this one, we are going to start off with Lilith.
Nancy definitely took charge a lot faster. Like I said, the last one, she immediately started finding a way to be able to fight him, to be able to find a way that she could actually be able to kill him. Even in the comics, she's a badass. So she kind of takes everything to there, whereas Laurie kind of just waited up until the last few movies.
All right. It's Patrick.
I'm going to go with Nancy for this one. I think that, much like the last point I made, Laurie in the new trilogy, she is, gung-ho about it, but she had 40 years to prepare. Nancy did it, as it happened, as it developed. So I'm going to go with Nancy for just that natural instinct and urge to get stuff done.
All right. Deandra.
Well, I will say, Laurie definitely does have her later era, but that's her Nancy Thompson era, and it took her 40 years to get there. So absolutely Nancy from the very beginning, over the last couple of days that she went through it all. She put the coffee pot together, she warned her friends, she tried to figure everything out, and then she put booby traps in her house. So definitely Nancy from the get-go. She's a real go-getter.
That's all you want to say, eh? That's it? That's it. Staved off death. And you threw down some harsh smack talk there. That was like, hey, I was waiting for it. And there it is. All right. So we now will move on to personality, and what a subjective. Oh, Deandra's shrugging. Okay, we're gonna start with Deandra. She's giving an attitude.
All right, I'm going to say this. They're both kind of vanilla in their own way. They're very much laid back, sweet girls. Nancy, though, she's a swearer. I love it when she swears and she screams and she's constantly cussing people out. That is so much fun. Laurie definitely has her moments later on. But I'm going to give it to Nancy because of the first movie, A New Nightmare, although Nightmare 3, I don't particularly care for her personality. So. The end.
The
2 seconds.
All
So
right.
close.
Oh wow. Lilith, your go.
I'm going to go with Nancy because even though they both started out as being sweet, Jamie Lee eventually, she went from being sweet to just having this, I am very militaristic personality in pretty much all of the other movies. Whereas Nancy kept her sweetness, but that sweetness never got in the way of her edge. She was still able to throw down when she needed to and defend those who needed it.
All right, Patrick. Would you like to be friends with one of them?
And that's what I'm gonna base my answer on is who would I most likely be friends with. I gotta go with Nancy because she seems a little bit more outgoing, but she's not. She's just she'll tell you like it is. I feel like Laurie would be a little bit more timid with telling you like it is. Nancy has a variety of friends, different walks of life, so I gotta go Nancy because I don't think she'd be as judgmental as Laurie.
She wouldn't judge you as much. That's nice. All right. So for this next one, we are going to discuss physical ability. We will start off with Lilith.
I'm going to go with Laurie for a lot of what she said, that basically when it comes to the way that they fight, Nancy is more cerebral and less physical, and Laurie, she gets down and dirty. She kind of just drags through the trenches. So, yeah, she wins this one.
All right. Patrick.
I gotta go Laurie, and I just have this one. I have to call back to one scene, and that's the end of H2O. She takes the axe, she decapitates Michael, goes through the bone, and with one swing, that's all you need. I don't think Nancy had demonstrated that type of strength in any of the movies. So for that one scene alone, I gotta go Laurie.
Axe drop. All right. Deandra, you're up.
I will say, Nancy did tackle Freddie when she tried to pull him out of the dream. She did fight him off when he came through the mirror. She had a lot of moments where she stabbed him in part 3. And of course, as Heather, she punched him, which is what we all waited for. But yeah, Laurie really was the physical fighter. Nancy had her moments, but I think Laurie wins here.
All right. Okay, so we are nearing the end, not quite there, but two big categories, and I think it's been moving along pretty evenly. So they're big categories. We'll see what happens in the final two. Final battle. So now this is very open-ended, as some have, there's been a couple of final battles, but this is for you to choose whichever way you want to go. And for that, we will start off with Patrick.
Okay, so let's go Nancy. Because I feel like her death, her final battle, if you want to call it a battle, I guess you consider New Nightmare more of a battle. It's more monumental to me and sticks with me more than any of the final battles with Laurie minus the first film. So let's give it to Nancy.
Let's give it to Nancy. All right. Deandra.
This one is tough because she really does give him hell in Halloween Ends, and then bringing it all the way to the shredder, I guess you can call it. That whole thing, that's pretty dope. And Nancy, I'm gonna go beyond the comics because, or go into the comics, because Dream Warriors, I just don't feel was enough of a battle. They should have gone with Wes's original ending. So I'd say fudge. Nancy's is all over the place, but Laurie's is pretty cut. So Laurie.
Laurie. Wow. All right. Kind of threw a curve. Oh, yeah. Shame. Threw a curveball there. I thought you were going Nancy all the way to the end. So what a twist. All right. Lilith, you're bringing up the end of the round.
I'm going to go with Nancy because not only has she defeated Freddy, like in part 1 and whatnot, but she also defeated him as Heather. And it wasn't even Freddy. It was a demon that was even more powerful than Freddy that drew himself up out of the power. So she was able to take on both and defeat both. And even after she died, if you take, the comics at street value, which they count, she continued to fight him. So she never stopped, alive or dead.
All right. Panel's very divided. I'm very interested to see how this one's going to play out. And here we are in the final category of the Final Girl episode, which is legacy. So who leaves a bigger legacy, has a bigger legacy? It's all up to you and your interpretation. I see a wheel spinning, so we'll leave and smoke coming out of Patrick's ears, so we'll leave him for the first one, and we'll start off with Lilith.
I think that Nancy actually has a stronger legacy, because even though everyone kind of associates Halloween with both Michael Myers and Jamie Lee Curtis, they could, carry on and have other people. And they have carried on with other people, even in Nightmare on Elm Street. But her character played such a huge role. She wasn't just the teenage girl. She came back as the doctor. She's still there in her death. She is part of the universe, and you cannot separate her, even in death.
All right. Okay, Patrick, you're up.
I'm going to go with Laurie. 7 films, 40 years, and I am of the camp that I prefer Alice over Nancy in the Elm Street series. So that's my opinion. And yeah, so I think when you think of legacy, especially nowadays, you think of legacy sequels, and obviously Halloween hits those marks. Jamie Lee Curtis, big PR push, the legacy of this character. She wins it, in my opinion.
All right. There's a hot take in there too with the Alice thing. All right, Deandra, your last chance to speak your mind.
All right. So I definitely believe that Nancy is a far superior character to Laurie as far as capabilities go and dedication to. Basically, she was created to be the ultimate to Freddy's evil. But because of that PR push, I mean, Jamie was not really involved with Halloween. She didn't want to be until the David Gordon Green trilogy. And now they're like, oh, you are Laurie. We're all this. So, and she's a more well-known actress. So I have to give it to her on that alone. But I think there's potential for Heather to make a comeback and prove that otherwise.
All right. Wow. All right. I see some fingers crossed there. Okay, so I'm gonna throw 2 cents into that one. I do, my issue with storyline C with Laurie. I don't even know if it's. I guess it would be the C. The green storyline. My issue with that is, like I really think, like, and I've said this before, I really hate when, people, survive movies, but their parents are dead, their kids are dead, their house is blown up, they've lost 2 legs, and it's like, why? Like, who cares if you live at that point, right? And I feel like, if you see Laurie at the end of Halloween 1 and she's whimpering, but she survived and you're happy for her, and then you go on to see she's lived a tormented life of, like,
Kill.
just wow.
It's only fair.
Deandra, is there something you want to say, Deandra?
I just think
you
that should be on a shirt. I just said,
Gail.
Just love that.
Well, I'll respect the rules. I'll respect the rules. Okay, so Leighanne's gonna add this up.
I do want to interject here that Kirsty Cotton is extremely underrated, and she does not get enough final girl love. So I just want to put that out there.
Well, also in the book, Kirsty Cotton wasn't even the daughter. She was the friend that had a crush. So I thought that part was kind of cool too, that they ended up just bringing her in to fit the whole final girl persona. It's like, oh no, you got to have the young girl, fighting the big bad. And then they even gender swapped Pinhead, because Pinhead was originally in the book a woman. And so many guys are like, no, the Cenobites are genderless. It's like, yeah, the Cenobites were, but the Hell Priest was explicitly female. There's like 2 separate paragraphs where they talk about her vagina. I mean, it's a woman.
Well, you can't end on a higher note than that. So while Leighanne adds up the points, I think we got enough stock footage for previews and stuff like that for upcoming episodes. And you all kind of, like I said, you all had opinions on this one, and some of them were pretty harsh, but we love it. And Leighanne, do we have a winner?
We sure do. And we also don't have a final girl this episode. All of you died, and I love it. So thank you. And actually, Patrick and you guys are tied for being killed the most. So you could both wear that crown.
The veterans.
Yeah. This one was close. A lot closer than some of our other ones. But, Nancy took the cake by 2 points.
Wow.
Well, also Nancy, I think she could kill Michael Myers. Because if you see how far she goes, without any prep time, and Laurie
Patrick said
long?
No.
He said no.
Patrick said no.
Laurie had 40 years and failed. Ooh, she blew up the house.
I mean, you can't take my opinion for anything. I love Halloween 5, so you can't take my opinion for anything. So.
Oh my God! Really? All right. Well, that. Wow! Really? Okay.
I think Heather would have had the wood chipper sooner.
Here's the thing. I want. Does anybody like Halloween Resurrection?
It's fun.
I like it more than Rob Zombie's.
No. Well. All right, so this is gonna a whole new dynamic, and we don't want to do that on this show. But I do want to congratulate Nancy from Nightmare on Elm Street. She wins the first final girl battle. I can't help but laugh at Deandra's reaction. Love it.
People are going to kill me for some of my takes, I swear. But you know what? I had to be objective. I just can't say everything. That would be unfair to Laurie, because Laurie has a lot going on. But I'm so happy. I was actually nervous for this. I was like, everyone's just going to be like, it's definitely Laurie for everything. But I'm really happy that Nancy won. So, I'm going to sleep well tonight.
You did good. Yeah, I honestly, I figured it was going to be heavily Nancy in your favor, but your objectivity is very respected on this show. So I thank you for that. Yeah. So, I mean, like I said, it was a colorful show with a lot of great opinions. I'd like to thank the panel who joined and contributed. And I'd like to thank Leighanne, who you know, look at that. You maybe you didn't kill as much as normal, but you got to kill me.
That's the best. That trumps everything.
Can we just have like one more kill? Just real quick.
Kill! Get you.
I love it. It's awesome. All right. So that is it for this episode of Horror Face Off. Join us on the next episode. It's a Cronenberg episode. We'll see you then. Take care.